We always think that the nerd in school who always got bullied was the victim, but sometimes they're actually the mastermind. This is the story of Ethan Gray, a boy who pretended to be a fool and then tricked the entire city. It all started 4 years ago. Everyone called him dumb, but he wasn't. For 4 long years, Ethan Gray kept his head down, eyes low, pretending to be the town fool. He stammered when spoken to, dropped things on purpose, and mumbled nonsense that made people laugh and whisper behind his back. But what they didn't know was that Ethan remembered everything, every cruel word, every kick, every time they pointed at his patched-up clothes and called him slow. Ethan knew he was smarter than everyone in his class, maybe even the teachers. He could easily tell when someone was trying to trick him because all he had to do was look into their eyes. If they weren't looking away fast, if they were whispering to each other when he entered the room, or how they quickly changed the topic when he came close enough to eavesdrop. After 4 years, Ethan had a great understanding of who was good and who was bad, and now he can use that knowledge to his advantage. He may have been just an ordinary kid once, but after what happened to him, it was hard to call him that. For starters, he had a name that meant something, a future father who was honest and hardworking. Richard Gray, his dad, once worked as the operations manager for Jonathan Steele, the most powerful businessman in the region. But power and greed don't mix well with decency. When Richard uncovered that Steele was stealing millions through fake charities and shell companies, he confronted him, hoping to fix things quietly. Instead, Steele framed him, planting forged documents and bribing top officers to throw Richard in prison for embezzlement. That night, Ethan watched helplessly from the hallway as police shoved his father into a car, his mother screaming and pleading. Within weeks, their house was repossessed. And one cold October night, after being turned away from a hospital that demanded upfront payment, Ethan's mother died in his arms outside a locked emergency room. Ethan was just 14. That night, something inside him shattered. But from the pieces, something sharp was born. A cold, patient hunger for justice. Not revenge through fists or fire, but through something far more dangerous: calculated silence. No matter what they said or did, Ethan would not make a sound. He wouldn't beg for help. He would disappear in plain sight. So he played dumb. The boy who once won spelling bees now acted like he couldn't tie his shoes. People mocked him, ignored him, dismissed him. They gave him access. He became invisible enough to listen in on conversations at coffee shops, sweep the floors of office buildings, and carry water to people who thought he couldn't even read. But at night, Ethan studied. He read stolen books by flashlight, hacked into databases from public libraries, and learned law, finance, and coding on second-hand phones. He memorized names, learned patterns, and he waited. Meanwhile, Jonathan Steele lived his life thinking he was untouchable. He ran his businesses, flipped houses, drove around in his Audi R8, ate at 5-star restaurants. It didn't take long for Ethan to get into his circle. In the end, Steele's son introduced them to each other. "Meet Daniel Evans, my new assistant," Steele announced proudly. "He's eager to learn about our new project." In reality, Ethan's mind was already 10 steps ahead of them. The plan was simple: fake companies, false investment reports, carefully recorded bribe requests, and confidential meetings, all documented and stored. Then he would wait until Steele lost interest and sell the documentation to the highest bidder. But there was one problem. Although Steele was greedy, he was smart enough to keep his computer files safe and secure, and no one could hack into them except for the best hackers in the world. Luckily, Ethan knew a thing or two about hacking. Years of practicing on second-hand phones had taught him a lot, and he could use those skills to infiltrate Steele. All he had to do was find a way in. So Ethan spent the next 6 months learning the layouts of Steele's offices, testing the security of his Wi-Fi networks, and watching his habits. He was very thorough, especially since he was only 18 years old. He would work as Steele's personal assistant during the day, taking notes, organizing schedules, and getting coffee. But he was also secretly gathering information. He found vulnerabilities in Steele's data encryption, stole passwords from janitors and drivers, and tracked Steele's activities. When he found something interesting, he would write it down in his notebook. Sometimes he would add small details to Steele's calendar entries, things like mentioned tax evasion or bribery discussion. But everything changed when he found a hidden folder containing financial statements for Steele's offshore accounts. It had a password on it, but that didn't stop him. All he had to do was try some random combinations, and then voila, he was in. From there, he saw how deep this rabbit hole went, and he began to realize that Steele wasn't the smartest guy around. He was greedy, sure, but also too cocky to care about the little things, and that made him vulnerable. Steele would never guess that his new assistant was actually a hacker. It made Ethan's job easier because he didn't have to be careful. He could come and go as he pleased. And because he was just a nobody to everyone, he was trusted with important information. Plus, knowing Steele's habits helped him predict which folders he would leave open, or which documents he would send to his email instead of keeping them on the office computers. In the end, it took Ethan about 9 months to gather everything he needed, and what he found was nothing short of shocking. There was so much evidence against Steele, more than Ethan could ever imagine. But that was fine because he didn't need all of it. As Steele's assistant, he listened to phone calls, observed meetings and stole physical documents, and that was enough to bring him down. And just like that, Ethan was ready to move on to the next part of his plan. In front of everyone, he was still the stupid assistant, the clown who couldn't speak properly, the intern who couldn't finish his coffee without spilling it, but behind closed doors, he was ready to leak everything to the press. It was time for Steele to pay for what he did. Ethan had collected enough material to ruin Steele's reputation and send him to jail for the rest of his life. He had secret recordings of him bribing officials, bank statements of him laundering money, and evidence of him stealing from his own employees. And that last one hit home hard. When the news broke, Steele tried to defend himself by saying it was all a misunderstanding, but no one believed him. His career was over and his reputation was ruined. The only thing left for him to do was run. But where could he go? How could he hide? He didn't know that Ethan had predicted this, too. He had done the same research on the authorities that Steele had done on him, and he knew that Steele wouldn't be able to bribe or threaten them. He had chosen the right city, the one place where Steele would be caught. As for Ethan, he disappeared. He deleted his social media accounts, threw away his cell phone, and moved out of state. He didn't want to be a hero. He just wanted to get away. And he did. No one knows where he is today, but some believe he's working with the FBI, helping them catch white-collar criminals. Others say he's living a normal life somewhere in California. But we can say one thing for sure. Ethan Gray is doing just fine. The quiet kid who pretended to be a fool is now a legend in the world of hacking and intelligence. He was able to outsmart one of the richest men in the country because he was smart enough to wait.